There's one thing that I get judged more than anything when it comes to being a stepmom. And I'm going to talk about it today because it actually came up in a conversation with my husband just yesterday at some point. And I have to really constantly prepare myself for the ricochet, I guess is the best description, um, of what it feels like when you are looked at one way when you didn't ask for anything other than to be in a man's life. And then you were willing to take on whatever came with that. And so oftentimes in the last 8 months of us being married, it feels like I'm like, and I just have to keep getting up to go and continue to serve these kids and be a part of these kids' lives because I chose to marry a man with children. That is a conscious choice that you have to make, specifically as a woman, to be in a man's life who has kids from somebody else. I've said this before and I'll say it again. It is not for the weary whatsoever. But what I want to talk to you about is the number one thing that I have experienced feeling the most judged for since marrying my husband and becoming a part of his kids' lives, my bonus kids' lives. My name is Brianna, if you don't know me. I am a 20 plus year licensed clinical psychotherapist. I'm also a multifaceted mentor, coaching 6 and 7 figure CEOs, entrepreneurs, and business owners. I'm a speaker, I'm an author, and now I'm a daily YouTuber. I'm a creator at heart. And a part of my goal in doing these videos is to become more confident in speaking my story clearly, communicating clearly, and really learning to hone in on what my message exactly is. Because as you've seen through these last 27 videos, or no, 28, because today's 29, I'm kind of all over the place, but not in a bad way. It's just like I have lived so many lives within my life that I have a lot to share and talk about. So I'm trying to figure out how I can really become more systemic in the things that I have to share. Now, you will have to excuse me because I feel like garbage. I woke up in the middle of the night not feeling great. My ears are popping. My throat is a little bit sore. But I'm here today because I know this is something that I can quickly do. I'm not struggling too much with the foggy brain other than taking some medicine. But I want to get into this today because I've noticed that my conversations about stepmotherhood have been fairly popular. So maybe I'm talking about stuff that nobody else is, or maybe people are talking about it in these small little pockets where you can have these conversations like I'm having with a couple of my girlfriends who are like bonus parents or have been dating somebody for a very long time who have a child. So they kind of get where I'm coming from, because even my friends who are moms, I don't think they can fully grasp what my experience is like, because it's very different from theirs, although they are very kind and understanding and empathetic. So the number one thing that I get judged for comes with the story. My husband came home last night, yesterday afternoon, and he said that somebody that he used to be pretty well connected with gave one of his other friends a call. So there's two friends involved here. And so this guy that he hasn't spoken to in a while calls his other friend that he speaks to all of the time and says, I'm kind of disappointed at E. And the friend was like, well, why is that? And he said, well, because of how he handled this whole like marriage situation with his kids. And his friend was like, well, what do you mean? And he was like, well, the fact that they call her mom already. And the friend said, well, then you need to call E and have a conversation with him, which, let's just acknowledge that that is a true friend. Like, I'm not here to speak for him. I'm not here to do his work. Talk to him and get the understanding and perspective from him. And so then the friend said, well, I mean, blah, 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 and like didn't really say much. And so the friend that got the phone call was like, look, he was like, I had similar feelings, but once I talked to E and he helped me to understand the whole picture, I got it. And I actually think it's really cool. I think it's super awesome that this is where they're at. So Here is the thing about being judged for the progress that you make in a kid's life that you are not the biological mother of. You do not choose any of this process. I didn't choose any of this process. I chose to be in a man's life, and I chose to be in his life with whatever he was coming with. That came with hurt from his divorce. That came with debt from his divorce. That came with two toddlers from his divorce. That came with being fired from jobs because of his divorce and then not being able to be hired because of his divorce. So I married a man that came with a lot of stuff. But I chose that knowing that some of it would be heavy, some of it would change quickly, and other parts of it would be a learning curve throughout our lifetime together. So when we first started dating, I never met his kids, didn't even FaceTime him when he had the kids. We did not interact. And it wasn't until we got engaged that we started talking about what me meeting his kids would look like. The reason for that is, as somebody who has done family therapy and child therapy for 20 years, I have seen the impact of adults moving too quickly into new relationships without allowing their kids to get comfortable with the system. And it's selfish. It is truly selfish. I personally believe that is very, very, very selfish. And it does a lot for the kids, because then people like me who work with kids oftentimes will experience children who are confused, overwhelmed, living in uncertainty. And there is not a commitment. Yes, you are dating, okay? But, and this is maybe just coming from also my Christian perspective. Yes, you are dating, but you are single until you are married. So there is no guarantee that y'all are going to stay together or work it out. So at least once you get to a solid commitment, then you have created a foundation that says, I want to be with this person forever. And here is how that foundation looks. And this is how we're making that secure for our kids, not for us, but for our kids. So he's got a 5-year-old. At the time we were dating, they were 4 and like 1 and almost 2. So 1.5. So they were young. I felt like the way that we postured things was very healthy for the kids. And this is why. Because once we got engaged, we were already planning our wedding. And about a month before we got married, I met the kids. I was introduced to them as Bree Bree. That was my name. Call me Bree Bree. And that's what they did. We started just spending day dates together where they would come over to the apartment. We would take the dogs for a walk. We would go to the park. I would go to his apartment. We would watch a movie together with the kids. We would play. There was no spending the night together. There was no long extended periods of time together. It was just them getting used to me being around. So the more time that we spent in these short increments, they started to get to become familiar with just Bree Bree. Now, when we started to plan getting married, we prepared the kids for that. We said, hey, in this many days, Daddy and Bree Bree are going to be married. I almost said mom because that's what I am to them now. So Daddy and Bree Bree are gonna be married. And so then we started this countdown. And then we prepared for them. Once we get married, Daddy and you two are going to move into the apartment with Bree Bree and Ace and Fitz, and we're all going to live together as a family. Isn't that so exciting? We're having a bigger place, a new place. There's a park. There's 2 dogs. You know, we did all of the things. So once we got married, they all moved in with me. And, or like the week before we got married, I think it was, because his lease was ending. So a week before we got married. So once that happened, I just did what I normally do when anybody is living with me. I make sure they're taken care of. I make sure they're fed. I make sure that they're comfortable. I'm not doing, God, I have an itchy nose, excuse me. Forgive me for using your name. So I just did what I do. I didn't force myself on them. I didn't like try to let them, I didn't try to make them let me pick them up. I didn't force them to play with me. I just kind of chilled and let them come to me. And so what happened over about a month and a half time frame, my bonus son was leaving with my husband to go run some errands or something, and I had to stay back to work. And as they left, he said, "Is mom coming?" And my husband was like, "Why in the heck would mom come?" Because he thought he was talking about his ex. And he was like, "Well, what's mom doing?" And he was like, "What do you mean?" "I don't know." Like, he was getting like flustered. And then he was like, "Wait a second. Who are you talking about?" And he goes, "Mom." And he was like, "Mom who?" Oh my goodness. Excuse me. "You know, mom," and pointed back at the apartment. And that was the first time that he used that label for me on his own accord, in the most random way. Now, the youngest one was still calling me Bree Bree. Again, call me what you want. Like, I am who you want me to be to you. But what I'm going to be is somebody who role models, you know, appropriate and respectable behavior. I role model having fun and playing. I role model a safe person to come to. I role model what it's like to like be in a family, and I role model health, and I role model mental awareness and emotional intelligence. So that's who I knew I was going to be to them. But who I am to them, who I wanted to be to them, but who I am to them is up to them, right? So fast forward a couple weeks later, we go on a weekend vacation at this specific close friend of E's. And I'm sure they had this conversation then. We were at the park, and I was taking the youngest to go swing. And then here comes the oldest, "Mom, wait for me, mom." And I said, "Okay, cool. Let's go." Like, I didn't make a big deal about it, because none of what's happening is something that I'm expecting to have happen. I'm just allowing things to unfold in the nature of both of their timing and at their own accord. Now, we have been living together for 8 months. I still do not force myself on them. I still do not try to make my presence known when they come home. I'm not trying to do anything to earn their love, earn their attention, earn their like acceptance. I feel all of those things for myself already. So when they're ready to give, when they're ready to engage more, when they're ready to be more vulnerable with me, then I'll be ready for that as well. It wasn't until about maybe 2 months after that, or maybe a month, I can't remember, that the little one started calling me mom. And now every so often she'll be like, "You're Bree Bree, right, mom?" Yeah, okay. These titles, while they're great for me and I feel amazing and I feel a sense of like pride, and that's how they see me, I also know that that label is more for them. It's how they see me and how they feel like, based on how I show up for them, that that's who I am to them. I think that it's sad that people will judge other relationships based on what they're assuming is going on, because I also know that there are a lot of assumptions being made on the other side of this that are more than likely not true, based on not having any information about what's going on. And so I feel like it's really sad, because even when he was sharing with other friends that they were calling me mom already, because that's how he was just describing how close we've gotten, was like, "Oh no, that's a bad idea. You need to give them a different name. That's not respectable to the mother. That's not respectable to, like, who their mom is." And it's like, again, when a kid decides to do something, you kind of have to organically allow them to do it, while also sharing with them who you are. Hey, I will never be your mother, your mommy. I will be your mom if that's what you want me to be. But here is who I am in your life. I am a secondary support system. I am someone who probably is going to tell you more truth than your daddy or your mommy. I am here to be another person that you can feel safe with and come to if you ever need something. But I will never replace what your mom has done for you from birth, who your mommy is as a blood relative to you. I don't want that. I would have had my own children if that was something that I really ultimately wanted. So I just want to say that if you're watching this and maybe you are in a relationship where your partner is remarried or in a relationship and your kids are calling them a different label, whether it's mom, mommy, dad, daddy, whatever it is, celebrate that your kids feel safe with someone to be able to use that title or label to view them, because that is a big deal. And it's a big deal to have a child that feels comfortable with someone to that point. And what a gift that if there is ever an emergency, now you have somebody else that you can rely on, that your kids can feel safe with in that sort of situation. So I just want to give you some advice, especially as stepmothers. If you are walking this path where you are feeling judged or you are feeling ostracized, or even as a partner, if you're feeling like people are judging you for how fast things are moving or whatever it is, if you know that you are in integrity, if you know that you are giving space for your kids to open up in the time that it is for them, if you know that you're not forcing anything, then this is for you. Okay. Number one is that I want to remind you that you will always be under attack as a stepmom. You will always be on the outside of the circle. You will always be viewed as a problem in some way. So you have to develop thick skin or you will tap out. You have to be able to remember that none of this is about you. It really isn't. And we as stepmothers have to walk into this recognizing that this will never be about us. And it has to be okay. So you have to choose to walk with your shoulders back and your head high, no matter what happens, no matter what's being said, because you chose this role. It's almost like when I look at, not that I'm comparing us to Jesus or anything, even though we're super amazing people, but Jesus walked around and got condemned every single day. I mean, this man was tortured at the end of his life, but he still chose to stay in the role that God gave him. I believe that God gave me this role to be a stepmom because of everything I've gone through, because of my education and background, because of my emotional intelligence, because of the ability um, to navigate hard things and like kind of be like I said earlier, take the shots and keep on walking. So I want to just remind you, like, tough skin is a necessity for being a stepmother. Number two is the only story that matters is the one that's under your own roof. So no matter what people are saying, no matter what you're hearing, no matter what you can feel, because for me as an empath, I can like walk next to a person and I can feel what they're thinking just based on their energy because I'm just that good at reading the room. And so just remember that no matter what stories are being spread, no matter what you're feeling, what is happening under your roof is all that's important. And if you can maintain consistency and you can maintain the love that you guys have agreed upon within that home that you live in with your family and your stepkids, that is all that matters. Because guess what? People are going to talk. Talking is always going to happen. Judgment is always going to happen. We are all judging everyone all of the time. So you've got to sit back and remember that what's happening under your own roof is the only thing that matters. The third thing is you've got to start praying. I don't know what your religious background is, what your spiritual affiliation is, but I want to encourage you to start praying. Start praying for courage, start praying for endurance, start praying for strength, start praying for compassion and grace for the people that you're experiencing a negative way. Start praying for those who are judging you, and really remember that there is less control that you need in the moment to like prove yourself or perform or show them that they're wrong. And it's more about just being who you are authentically, both for the kids and for the other people around you, because you truly have nothing to prove. So if you can trust God with a strong sense of faith that He is always going to provide what you need to get through these sort of challenges and seasons, they won't hit as hard. Now, that's not to say that they aren't hard, because they are. Just this weekend, I feel like I had a really challenging weekend with the oldest. He was making certain comments about things that my humanness like feels hurt by. But I also know that he's 5 and he's still processing changes, and he's still trying to accumulate the words and the emotions to make sense of things that go on. So it's, again, it's not about me. So I have to have thick skin to experience what he's saying or experience what he's doing in a way that gives me compassion and grace for him, because number one, he's just 5. But number two, I can't imagine, because I've never been in his shoes, being in a situation where you're going from home to home. Things are still changing because there's new dynamics happening at his mommy's house. There are dynamics happening within our home that are constantly changing as well. So that's a lot. That's a lot for a 5-year-old specifically. So I just want to remind you, like, at some point, you have to give this stuff up to God, and you have to trust that He's going to give you what you need in order to be a stepmother and be what He has called you to be in the kids' lives that you're in. So I wish that I wasn't saved, because I'd throw up the middle finger to all the people judging and just be like, that's me saying a bunch of, words that I don't need to say. But what I am going to say is that I'm going to be praying for this man. I'm going to be praying for, which I have been, a couple of other people, so that they are able to see what's happening under our roof from the lens of God and Jesus, because it's a beautiful thing that happens here. There is nobody else that I can blame or point the finger at when it comes to how quick these kids started to sense who I was in their life, other than the fact that God had already been ordaining this and preparing these relationships, because I literally did nothing but cook a meal, put on some clothes, and play some silly games with them. So y'all stop judging if you're judging. And if you're feeling judged, zip up that thick skin, girl, because you've got a longer battle ahead than you may think. And that's something I have to keep preparing myself for, is like, this is just the beginning. They're 2 and 5. So I just am constantly praying that no matter what, that our relationship continues to deepen, continues to grow, and that they continue to feel safe with me, and that there's no outside distractions or voices that try to convince them other than what they feel, know, and believe within their own heart. So yeah, very interesting. Anyways, if you're a step parent, I don't know, shoot a comment in here. Let me know what your experience has been like. If you're a parent who's been remarried, and your kids are opening up in a way and you're seeing judgments on your end, again, comment below, because I'm curious, like, what your thoughts are on this. Just because, again, like, I only have a couple of people that I'm talking to about this, so it's been a very interesting ride. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.